Welcome back to the Alt. Thank you for joining me again today. I'm your host, Shapiri, and excited to be back with you to give you my Week 7 previews. Normally we talk about the Thursday night games in this episode. Weird schedule. In case you didn't tune into the other episodes this week, I kind of previewed and said, hey, going to be a weird schedule for me this week. This one's going to be a little different. No Thursday night football talk because as of the time of recording, I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know what happened yet. Apologies for the weird scheduling. This should be the last time through the end of the NFL season that this occurs. With that said, we're going to give you all my Week 7 previews, the biggest matchup of the week in terms of its overall effects, the one and done pick of the week, my risky pick of the week. Let's get right into it. But before we do, please do me a favor. Check and see if you're subscribed. And if you're not, please just hit that little button. Do me a big favor. I would greatly appreciate it. Plus, it just takes a second. You can also follow me on most social media at the Alt NFL. Leave a comment down below if you'd like to add into the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. So with that said, I'm going to get started here with my Week 7 biggest game of the week. And I know what you're thinking. If you've been watching sports shows this week, there's not quite a Ravens-Commanders game this week that's like, oh my God, the matchup of the year. It's not quite one of those. But there has been one that has been talked about like it's the biggest game of the week. And I'll say this now. Yes, Lions-Vikings is going to be the most fun matchup of the week. Absolutely. And then after that, yes, Chiefs-49ers is going to be very exciting. It's a Super Bowl rematch. May also be a Super Bowl preview. Who's to say? Absolutely. With that said, it's not neither of those are the biggest game of the week. Neither of those. The frame of this conversation that I have is which one's going to matter the most at the end of the season? Which one are we most likely to circle as incredibly relevant come Week 18 when playoff seeds are decided? Okay? With that said, that to me, when I look at it with that frame of reference, leaves one very obvious game. The Baltimore Ravens are traveling to Tampa Bay this week, and I am pumped to see how this one turns out because it matters a lot for both teams, which always makes for good teams. Let's start with the home team, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs right now are tied for first with Atlanta in the NFC South, but Atlanta has a much easier schedule down the stretch than Tampa does. We all know that little graph that I showed a couple times before the season started about how easy Atlanta's schedule is based off of preseason strength of schedule. It still looks pretty easy, in my opinion, at least easier than Tampa Bay's. Including the matchup this week, Tampa has 4 consecutive games against current division leaders. Now, that does also include Atlanta. Then they get to a stretch of 3 games that are winnable that they will be favored to win going into early December. 4 straight games against current division leaders. That's tough. That means that this one has stakes. You're in a bit of a gauntlet yourself. I talk about gauntlets and stuff every now and then, like you get a really rough stretch. This is one of them for Tampa, and you're going to have to win a couple of these to be the team that we are kind of expecting out of Tampa at this point. I feel like they've earned our trust, right? The fans and the media, they've earned our trust a little bit. Not necessarily to be a Super Bowl contender, but to at least take care of business in the NFC South. You drop this one to Baltimore. If Atlanta takes care of business as they're favored to do in each of the next handful of games, NFC South could be out of reach very, very quickly, in all seriousness. And so, for that reason, you need this one. You really do need this one. Flip over to Baltimore. They're also tied right now atop the AFC North. But as I said last week, they look primed to go on a huge run starting this week. Now, a win here means that, per Vegas odds, they're favored to be the lone leader of the AFC North for the first time all season at the end of Week 7 because Vegas will favor, right now, the Jets to beat Pittsburgh on Sunday night. They're tied right now, and so a Pittsburgh loss, Baltimore win. Congrats, you're in first place outright. Lose this one. Baltimore. Seriously, listen. Baltimore loses this one. Think of how weird this could get down the stretch. The AFC North, just after Week 7, can be very crowded at the top with 3 teams within 1 game separating each other if Pittsburgh and Cincinnati win. Pittsburgh, like I said, 1.5 point home underdogs against the Jets, but I still haven't picked that game for what it's worth as of the time of recording. I don't know who I'm going to pick. I have no clue what to expect for that one. That is going to be must-watch TV. Cincinnati wins over the Browns, which they're favored to do. Granted, it's in Cleveland. Cincinnati hasn't won there in 7 years. So I'm not necessarily saying like they're going to trash Cleveland. By no means am I saying that. But that's what's favored to happen. And all of a sudden, 3 teams are within 1 game of each other in the AFC North. So with that said, this is a crucial game. Baltimore needs this one to help assert their dominance in the division that a lot of us have expected them to do all season. They just haven't done so yet because of the weird 0-2 start. Tampa Bay needs this one because their closest division rival this season in Atlanta has a bit of an easier stretch right here ahead of their matchup next week. You lose this one, you're a game behind them. Atlanta wins the games they're supposed to win. Division could get out of reach. That's the biggest matchup of the week. It really is. Most fun? Lions-Vikings, in my opinion. That's the one I'm most excited for. Biggest is Tampa Bay, Baltimore. Moving on now to my 2 big picks that we do every single Friday episode, and I'm excited for these ones because, guys, we got the risky pick right. The first underdog pick of the week, I was calling it the underdog lock of the week, not one underdog that I picked, one for weeks 1 through 5. In week 6, I've prefaced this before on the show, I say at least one underdog wins every week, and that will happen all season long. Guess how many underdogs won in week 6? 1. The Indianapolis Colts, who I, albeit at the very last moment, because I did have them picked already, I did think they were going to win that game, but for the sake of the show, I did not want to pick the same team 2 weeks in a row for the risky pick. So I didn't know if I'd pick the Colts or not. But while I was doing it, I got this gut feeling like, nah, Arizona, Green Bay, that is really risky. Go with Indianapolis. Get on the board. You know that's a game that you feel really good about. I did. They were the only underdog in the entire NFL to win in week 6. So I'll take it. It took some crazy circumstances where only one underdog won for me to finally get one right. Okay? It took 5 weeks of getting it wrong by sometimes crushing circumstances. Sometimes the team got blown out. Okay? Can we get a winning streak going with the risky pick of the week where I pick one underdog out of the entire slate that I think will win their game outright? I'll tell you right now. If you're listening to this, have you looked at the favored teams this week, the teams that are favored to win? Have you looked at who the underdogs are? Really sit and think about it for a second. What are the games this week? Oh, okay, it's that one, and just this game, and I don't know. If you did, you probably just came to the same conclusion I did. The Kansas City Chiefs are underdogs this week while sitting undefeated, coming off a bye. Why? Now look, the 49ers, despite being 500, also looked shaky themselves last week on Thursday. So you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs haven't looked great all season, and they're on the road in San Francisco. Sure, they might not have looked great. Neither is San Francisco, and at least Kansas City is finding ways to win these games without looking great. And I think personally, if not coming off a mini by themselves, I don't think the 49ers are favored in this game at home. I think you'd be looking at like literally 1.5 or a point given to the Chiefs on the road. I really do. But alas, here we are. And guys, the Chiefs aren't going to be underdogs very often this season. If I have to count on one quarterback who's going to help me get the risky pick of the week, it's first winning streak of the year, 2 in a row. Woohoo. I may as well pick the QB who won't be eligible for it but once or twice all season because they're not going to be underdogs very often at all. I might as well pick Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, underdogs by 1.5 on the road in San Francisco, in what very well could be a Super Bowl preview on top of being a Super Bowl rematch. That's the pick. That's the pick if you're looking at the slate. And so I'm excited about that one. I feel great about it. I think I'd pick them outright, regardless of the circumstances right now. I told you already, after week 3, I think I said, I think they start 9-0. I literally think the Chiefs start at least 9-0 going into that Bills game. Not to say that I think they lose to the Bills and go 9-1. I'm just saying I think they face the Bills at 9-0. So, Chiefs, you're my risky pick of the week. Now, moving on to the one and done pick of the week. And this one, I can only pick a team one time all season, even if they're wrong. So I've got 3 teams right now who I picked who didn't do the job for me. The Bengals, the Buccaneers, the Seahawks. I picked them to win their game. I still in retrospect felt really good about all of them. It didn't happen. Okay? So, with that said, who am I picking this week? Who's the sixth team I'm adding to the list? To recap, I cannot pick the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, the 49ers, or the Seahawks, or the Texans, who did do the job for me last week to get the one-and-done picks back to 500. Thank God. You saved the season. Thank you, Houston. And with that said, I hate to not be able to pick most of those teams at this point of the season. I kind of blew the Chiefs, even though they did win that game. Things like that. But I do still have, some good teams on there that I'm able to pick at some point that I'm kind of holding on to. I'm using one of them today. I'm picking the Buffalo Bills against the Tennessee Titans as my one-and-done pick of the week. The team that is favored, that if I have to pick one team out of the whole slate to be like a Survivor-esque pick, it's them. Now, let's talk about the matchup for a second, in all seriousness. Did you guys know the Tennessee Titans have the number one defense in the NFL in terms of yards per game allowed? Subsequently, as is usually the case when this happens with at least one of the two types of defense, they have the number one passing defense in the NFL. That's crazy. What do you mean the Tennessee Titans have that? And look, go to the Bills side of things. Josh Allen himself is only averaging 190 yards a game. But let's be honest with ourselves here. These are fluky stats. Do you trust at the end of the season the Tennessee Titans will have the number one defense in terms of yards allowed per game? Do you trust at the end of the season Josh Allen is going to have only 190 passing yards per game? Of course you don't. And more than anything, flip it in a way that might seem like it favors the Titans in terms of just like league standings, rankings, whatever. I don't trust the Titans scoring on Buffalo. I don't. The Bills' defense, in all seriousness, has earned my trust in a way that I wasn't sure that they would. Their secondary has looked a lot better at points this season than I thought it would. I've pointed out how, their secondary is probably their weakest position group. Now you throw Amari Cooper into the mix. I'm not sure what his game plan is going to look like on Sunday. We know Devontae Adams is, reportedly a huge part of the game plan for the Jets, by the way the media is covering it. But I haven't heard anything as of the time of recording about what Amari Cooper's outlook for Sunday is. I imagine he plays, but I can't imagine he has a huge role. I don't think they need a huge role. Give me the Bills of last week. Sans Amari Cooper, I still think they beat the Titans. And I think we all think they beat the Titans. They're like 9.5 point favorites, something crazy like that. And I feel great about it. So if there's a week for me to blow the Bills, pause. If there's a week for me to use the Bills in this segment, it's this week. It's not blowing it. This is a good time to use them. But down the stretch, we could be having some crazy teams that we're picking down the stretch. So, I don't know. With that said, I like the Bills to beat the Titans this week. So to summarize it, biggest matchup of the week is Ravens traveling to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers, in my opinion. I think it's going to have big stakes. I think you can look at the season for the team that loses this game in particular and realize that the road ahead is a little bit tougher than it would be had they won this game. Risky pick of the week. The Kansas City Chiefs? Question mark? I don't know how risky that is. 1.5 point underdogs. I'm picking them. They're not going to be there hardly ever. And I need this risky pick to start getting some W's. I'm picking the Chiefs. And then the one and done. Of course, let me get the Buffalo Bills over the Tennessee Titans. That's probably the biggest favored game, most favored game of the week, the biggest point spread of the week. And I like the Bills to do it. So, with that said, that is all I have for you in today's episode. Kind of a shorter one. I appreciate you watching if you made it this far in the episode. Thank you. I love you. And I don't take you for granted. With that said, I'll be back here on Monday to talk about Week 7. This is one of the ones where there's so many important games that we could be having probably 10 to 15 different conversations depending on the outcomes of these games come Monday, which is always really exciting for a week of NFL football. So with that said, enjoy the Week 7 slate. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll be back here watching the games myself on Sunday, getting ready to bring you a brand new episode bright and early on Monday. So with that said, I will see you back here bright and early on Monday.